good. Good
No, you're
morning,
not.
everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living with Dementia. We're proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. Some of our programs are recorded and some are made available for viewing through our YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown, your host for today's activity. I'm thrilled that Peggy is back in the flesh, as it were, on Zoom. We're glad to have her live today, and Peggy's going to bring us Christina Fernandez and her art. Peggy, I took a peek today at Christina, and she's fascinating.
Oh, you did? Good. Yeah. She's great.
I can't wait to see what you've brought us, and it's all yours.
All right, let me.
What I was going to say, Martha, is that one of us, we've heard the speech so many times. If you want us, one of us can say the thing while you're doing the introduction. Okay.
I may do that tomorrow. Thank you, Steve.
Just got to flip the slide, type of thing.
You'll be Vanna White, Martha. You'll turn into Vanna White.
Yeah,
that's right.
I don't want you to text. I want you to get well.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get into it. So today we're looking at photographs by an artist named Christina Fernandez. She is a living artist, and we got this show from the California Museum of Photography. So it's a survey, which a survey is kind of not a retrospective, but it is a looking back on different series of works that she's done throughout her career. She's been photographing for about 30 plus years. So she's has quite a catalog of artwork. So we're going to start with this photograph. So she was not interested in photography until she took a required course and then totally fell in love with it. And she was raised by Chicano activists. She herself is Mexican American. And so she was from childhood trained to, was used to spotting the injustice and then had this feeling of, I need to fix it. So this is something she was very familiar with. And so it's really cool that we are getting the show, because a lot of times we call it the canon of art history. It's what your textbook brings you to, from the caves paintings in Lascaux to whatever is being made now. There's certain artists that they always show and feature, and historically women are often not in it. Black artists are not in it. Anybody of color, Chicano artists, things like that. So this is really cool that this is a real close-up of photographs by this particular photographer. She's dealing with a lot of different themes throughout her life. A lot of it with her identity as a Mexican American, as a Chicana, as a mom, things like this. So she likes the photography, taking pictures, because she's challenging and dealing with this, how much is being conveyed, are these complex stories being conveyed in a photograph. So we'll kind of see that play out in some of her different series. So this first photograph we're looking at is Lavanderia #1. And this is the first photograph she took on the walls right now. There's, I think, maybe like 8 or 9, but she's taken many pictures of laundromats in East LA. So what jumps out at you when you look at this photograph?
The graffiti.
The graffiti. Ding, ding, ding. That's what she wants you to notice, the graffiti. She was really interested in the etched and graffiti art that was appearing on all of these windows, these doors. But she was really interested in how this graffiti art was playing then with the light inside the laundromat, as well as the uniformity of all of these machines lined up. So while the outside was the focus, she couldn't separate it from what was going on inside the laundromat. So here we see, the colors, and in the other pictures that, some are hot pink and neon green, whatever the graffiti artist was choosing to use. And she took them all at night so that the light from the interior was really popping and making that reflect or making the graffiti show. And so, again, what do we see happening inside?
She's loading clothes or taking them out, one or the other.
Right, but yeah, we see activity, we see people, we don't just see the machines. So we see the humanity of, you know, these machines are people are using them, but we don't know who these people are. So there is two things are happening here. She's giving privacy to the people who are needing, these working class people who are needing to use the machines, but she's acknowledging that, like, these people, you know, this is just, these are things that people are doing. So it's not about the person, but we know that the space exists because people need it. So it's this kind of nod to the busyness, but the people doing it aren't what is important. It's kind of the existence of it in the community. Oh, go ahead.
When I first looked at the picture, there in the basket, she's got evidently laundry detergent, and it's right under that opening. When I first glanced at it, it looked like a child.
Oh, right here. Yeah. So it's a Rite Aid bag. You can see the logo Rite Aid, and we can't quite tell what is in the bag, but that's a really wonderful guess. Laundry detergent. She might have swung by the convenience store or the pharmacy, grabbed what she needed, and then kept on going to the yeah, there's like a relatability to if you've ever done your laundry, or whether you had an apartment where it didn't have a laundromat, or your machines weren't working, or whatever. You know, this is something that we're all doing, and so everybody, you know, needs clean clothing. This is something everybody can kind of relate to. Maybe not the same experience, but the necessity for having clean clothing. Her technique for this photograph is a long exposure. So to really focus on the still part. So the graffiti is still, the long exposure means anything that's moving will be blurred. And that's how she was able to achieve that blurred effect with the people and the machines moving in the background.
Hey,
But,
Peggy,
yeah,
do we know what the graffiti says?
I don't know. 49er is this one says right here. I mean, they're in California, so there's probably a lot of graffiti artists who might be known, might not, you know, amateur or professional graffiti artists. So, but that she doesn't identify who might have tagged these in her artwork. It's mostly just the kind of color play and the way that these exist in space.
I like how the flag is upside down. On the
I
door.
was just going to say, mention that also.
Oh yeah, right.
It means that means the country's in distress.
2002. What was going on then?
And it could be that they think it is.
Right. They're not wrong.
No.
So this was, so this particular picture was the first one she took in this entire series. So this is the very beginning, and you can kind of see how this series evolved on the walls here at the Carter. This is a different series she worked on entitled Multiple Exposures. And so, well, tell me what you see here. Let's talk about it.
Two people.
You see two people. Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
One on the left and one on the right.
It's almost like a mother hugging a daughter.
Okay, so we're talking about hugging. Yes. So this right here is Cristina Fernandez. This is the photographer herself. And she's hugging her arm across her body. But she's playing off of a double exposure. So we'll talk about who this woman is on the right, or excuse me, on the left. She deliberately posed her body this way as to have this kind of interaction with this other woman, but it still feels they're interacting, but they're layered. There's still a disconnect between the two. So this woman on the left, I don't know exactly who it is, but Cristina Fernandez was down in Oaxaca, Mexico, and was really interested in in Mexico's canon of artists, kind of like I was just talking to you about the canon of artists of, you know, the art photographers and painters that you study when you study art history. Mexico has, you know, their own version of that for Mexican artists. And she came across indigenous women were often portrayed or photographed. And while she was down there, she was very interested in this kind of relationship indigenous people had with those who were not indigenous and the treatment between the two. So she, as a child of activists, she was noticing these type of maybe unfair treatment, injustices. And then she was noticing how these people were portrayed in art. So she took pictures from books, zooming in on just the indigenous people that were portrayed in some of these artworks. So for this particular one, you might notice in the title, Bravo, in parentheses, Bravo was the name of the photographer that she was photographing the picture of. Whoop, sorry. So here we have a woman from Bravo's photograph that she photographed. Then she put her film back, ran it back through her camera and took pictures of herself for this double exposure. So it's very intense photographing. I mean, the lining up, the cropping, the hoping everything, because you're not seeing it until you're developing. So she was able to do these, you know, multiple exposures or double exposures and create this kind of conversation between the indigenous, which she's Chicana, Mexican American, has ties to this culture, but is removed from that culture. She's American now. She's generations past. So you can see that interplay, that almost like she's morphed into two parts of this person, but you can tell they're two people. It's an interesting play on her perception of herself and that culture.
It's almost like moving from older to newer.
That's right.
Mhm.
Right. And you know, that's part of me, but this is me, but I'm not leaving that past, but it's not true to who I truly am now. So you're kind of seeing that those complex conversations come into play.
That's a good portrait. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't look closely at it, it almost looks like the older photograph on the left. That's her arm reaching across the newer picture, even though that's the photographer's arm. It looks like it's coming out of the shawl, coming across her body.
You're exactly right. And that's part of that play on it. Is it me? Is it not me? But after a closer inspection, it's not me. But I feel that connection. And she did, you know, she was deliberate with her lighting too. So the lighting on the left was part of that original photograph that she photographed. So she lit herself from the right to create that balance. But it all plays, it feels as though it was all part of the same picture. And then again, you know, it's not.
It's almost a metamorphosis.
Yes.
Yes, that's a really great way to say that, Steve.
Moving, you know, yeah.
No, you're exactly right. And so this is one picture of 8 in this entire series.
That's cool. I like this one too. She's a good photographer.
Yeah, she's
Very
wonderful. So this was a portrait series, and she's in all of them. There are 8. It's 8 women, indigenous women, with then 8 different portraits of her. That's how that series came together. And the parentheses changes depending on which artist she was pulling from. So there are a couple of Bravos, but you know, different artists are also included. Yeah, Don, go ahead.
Do you have any idea when the picture of the indigenous woman was taken?
No, I don't have that year of when that picture was taken.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. It's timeless, quite frankly. So
It is, yeah.
You're right, it is. And what's cool too, I mean, you know, we know she's an artist and a photographer, so she's also playing within this art history of art, where she's imposing her as a Chicana photographer on a white male, or you know, a Mexican male photographer, and these conversations of that evolution of, well, now I'm part of the canon. I'm making myself part of the photography canon. Yeah, a lot to delve into. And she really enjoyed this as kind of understanding who she came from and who she is.
I wonder if Bravo ever saw that and his reaction to that.
I don't think he's a living photographer anymore.
Okay. That'd have been interesting to know his reaction
Yeah.
to that particular photo. Yeah.
You're right, Steve. That would have been cool. No, I don't think he's living anymore though.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so totally shifting gears, and I'm looking now, this looks kind of fuzzy, but you can find this on our website of this particular picture called On the Road. So what do we see? We know the title's On the Road. What indicates we're on a road?
We see the guardrail.
We see a guardrail.
Guardrails,
The
graffiti.
graffiti. Mhm.
We see that graffiti again.
And a village.
And then it kind of just fades into a landscape. We see, you know, some hints of a house, and then to the, you know, into the horizon.
It's something you would see as you're driving down the road.
Yeah.
Yes. Does this feel like we're in a city or we're in a suburb?
More
Like
of a
it's
rural, suburb, rural area.
rural suburb, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, use of the word village.
village, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is in California. This is in a community called El Sereno, or the Serene. And she took these photographs. This series of photographs are pictures that she took while she was on a walk with her son Diego. And so she would strap him in a stroller and they would walk through the neighborhood. And she took pictures starting in 2006 through 2010. So she was seeing this evolution of, this is a suburb outside LA, this evolution of housing and where people meet nature, and then during the housing crash in 2008. So she kind of was documenting that.
Mhm.
We're here, people aren't here, houses aren't selling. You can see that through when you're seeing that in the whole series. And so here you're getting a sense of how people made their mark in nature, because we're hearing rural, you know, you guys are seeing the trees and the brush, but we see a guardrail with then graffiti on guardrail. So we're seeing the hand of an artist on the hand of man in now nature. You know, you're seeing these layers of people making their mark.
I
But
bet,
oh, go ahead.
I bet you that it doesn't look that way now.
I bet not, no.
It's by LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. How many years ago was that?
Picture.
13
It's
years
a
ago.
memory.
Exactly. And that was starting to even shift, Nan, in that situation as she was taking it over the arc of 4 years. Things that were, you know, heavily used to not heavily used to now, how is it being used? And so we can still, you're right, this would not look the same now.
She probably got a progression of building up and then coming down.
Is that what it was?
And
Really?
not knowing it as it was happening, you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just taking pictures, I'm on a walk with my son.
That's right.
And I'm seeing these things day in and day out. I mean, I'm sure all of you can think of walking dogs or walking your children. I mean, you know, things start to just become things when you're on your walk, but then when you really start thinking about it on a deeper level and taking these pictures, like Nan said, this is just a memory now. This is not what it looks like. And it had many iterations before it and after it.
Yeah.
It's like the area here. The difference in Arlington and Grand Prairie is now trying to catch up with the rest of the people. But this was nothing like it was when I was a child.
And I was thinking of when I was researching the art and listening to curators talk about it and stuff, you know, I'm in the throes of, we're going on walks, we're in strollers and things like that. And from COVID to now, the number of houses that have gone through renovations, have demoed and then rebuilt, like these things that happen in our society that then kind of shift the direction because of what the scenario we're living in. So the housing crash people were forced to give up their homes, you know, and so that dilapidation, that lack of people taking care, yes, it probably looks pretty run down, did at one point look run down. So it's just, again, this is something that is timeless in that you can put yourself in any one of these, a walk, and you know what that evolution in your neighborhood looks like. And, you know, the title, The Serene, or, you know, the neighborhood's called, or the subdivision is called, you know, The Serene. Well, how serene is it when we're turbulent?
You know, the other thing I noticed about the house on the very right,
Mhm.
everything else looks like apartments or condos or something.
Uh-huh.
That house on the right looks like a castle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got cylindrical roof towers on the ends of it.
Mhm.
So it's not quite the same architecture as the rest of the neighborhood.
That was probably the premier house of the neighborhood.
Probably, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And then people fill in. It's that evolution. It's that now people are filling in.
Yep.
People are moving out of the city, or the city is expanding, you know, so it's that evolution of housing and people's mark in nature.
And I think we're going to see more of that because our interest rates are going up. So things are going to change in the
Yep.
housing market. So we're going to
Again.
see a lot more of that. You know, we're going to see people having to foreclose on homes because they can't afford the homes. They can't afford to buy new homes, can't afford to build homes. It's just going to be a whole mess in the housing market.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they're building all these stupid apartments all over the place.
Yeah.
And the rent is just ridiculous.
I know.
Peggy, when COVID came along, I didn't drive in some places in Fort Worth for 2 years. And I can tell you that the building that Penny lives in was a parking lot the last time I drove through. And 2 years later, there was a whole complex built up and people living in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. We live over off of White Settlement and Crestwood, and there are like apartment buildings falling from the sky, it feels like, all over that area. Just like you said 2 years ago, it was all riverfront and waterfront. I mean, it's crazy how quickly things change.
Grand Prairie is like that. We got apartments coming up all over the place. And it's just, you know, when we moved out here, we've only been here now 5 years. It was like wide open spaces, and now there's apartment complexes coming in all over the place.
Well, I can tell you what happened.
And it's just kind of like, we're about ready to move to another place, you know, it doesn't have as many people.
Grand Prairie kept, as I was growing up, Grand Prairie would not let hardly anything come into Grand Prairie. They wanted to keep it a small community town. Now all those people have passed.
Yep.
And so the younger people are trying to catch up. And I counted 7 apartment complexes going up just here in Grand Prairie. 7 of them, and they're huge.
So do you live in Grand Prairie, Dan?
Yes.
I do too.
Yeah, I'm at Warrior and Carrier.
Okay. All right. I'm down in Mira-Largo, so I'm across the lake in there, but it's the same thing. You know, if you go down Lake Ridge, all the way down across Joe Pool, but it's the same thing. The apartment complex is coming in all along that whole
Out there
way.
too. Okay, it's been a while since I've driven out there.
Let's let Peggy go ahead with her artwork.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm glad y'all made that connection. You have your neighbors.
I know you have.
Very good. Okay, go ahead.
So we got one more photograph artwork from this collection, or from this exhibition, and this is another series she did that focused on, well, Starline Fashion. Any guesses what this is?
Modeling
Looks
agency.
like a motel.
I heard modeling agency. What did you say, Nan?
Like a motel?
No.
Probably. Could it be apartments or not?
No, it's not.
Storefront?
It's not living. They're not living quarters. It's actually a garment factory.
Garment factory, really?
Ah,
And so she was really interested in this, things you see every day and you had no idea what's going on the inside. You know what I mean? it just kind of becomes a backdrop to your drive to work or your walk to, the store. It's just buildings that exist. But she focused on in this series on garment factories and these immigrant women who were employed in these factories making clothing. But she wasn't necessarily interested in the individuals she never wanted to go in and photograph what was going on inside because she didn't know the people. There was no connection for her to those people, but everybody had a connection in that area to these buildings because it was something they would typically see or pass every day. And so there's a series of factories basically that she just photographed the outside and that's it.
So is this in LA? Did you say this is in LA?
Yeah, this I believe is in LA as well.
Well, it looks
I
kind of
like
like
the colors.
Say that again, Yetta.
I like the colors.
And again, we see that graffiti.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she has a thing with graffiti, doesn't she?
That a thing. She sure does.
I think Los Angeles has a thing with graffiti.
True.
Los Angeles, I won't ever go back there.
I agree.
But so I mean, it's a very balanced composition. Do you feel that this is balanced, or does it feel, even though it's all cubes and stuff, does it feel kind of unbalanced because of any of the writing, or do you get the sense that it feels?
No, I mean, the writing is decoration. I mean, the architecture is consistent,
Yeah.
Cubes up one side and a door and more cubes up the other side and cubes across the top.
It
So
reminds me of the little houses in the hills in California that are all exactly the same.
yeah,
There was a song about houses made of ticky-tacky.
Yeah, little houses on the hillside, little houses made of ticky-tacky.
Yes, that's what this reminds me of.
Yeah, because they have different addresses on the doors.
right.
So you know that these are places that are inhabited by people, but you didn't know that they were apartments or not. So some of these people driving by, I mean, if it's in a neighborhood that is typically a industrial type of neighborhood, you probably would think, okay, this is maybe offices or factory or something. But the composition is so balanced, and then this red pulls you into the middle, and it keeps you focused, that kind of bouncing in between what's happening between these different fronts. Really, really very beautiful to me.
I mean, aside from having the different colored squares, this architecture formula seems like it's more industrial to start with, or something like that. But the squares, the color squares give it a little bit of more interesting look, but still, it's still industrial. Pretty much.
The no real windows makes it feel that way.
Yeah.
But there is some natural light. So again, it's prompting this question of, well, what's going on inside? All right, well, we know it's a garment factory, and the name of the garment factory is Starline Fashion. So that the titles within this series are the name of the actual factory or fashion garment line that they're working with. But what is going on in there? And that's, for us, we may never know. It doesn't matter to you. It could change in 5 years what's actually happening in there, but there's staples. The buildings themselves become the people because there's something we're familiar with. Well, that's all we got for Christina. She had there's a few other series that are highlighted within this exhibition, but we just looked at 4 different series, and even within those we have maybe not all of the photographs, but a good portion of them. So this is on view until, I want to say, like July 9th. So we have on our website for this particular exhibition, you can walk through the gallery spaces virtually. So if you're interested in seeing more of her photographs, jump on the Amon Carter website and you can explore the gallery from the comfort of your home.
It's a great show.
Thank you. That's great, Peggy.
Hey, Peggy. Peggy. I just looked up Starline Industries in LA. Come up.
Tell me.
It says that they are the fashion. It looks like they make Halloween costumes, quite frankly. That's what it looks like they make. So That's what this web page shows.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Don.
doing that research. I didn't,
Welcome.
Starline felt like it had a little glitz and glam to it, didn't it?
Yeah.
That makes sense, Halloween.
Definitely
But-
glitter.
Adult Halloween, let me put it that way,
Yeah.
adult Halloween, yeah.
Oh, got it, okay. I'm really, yeah, I'm not picturing the cute fluffy pumpkins
No,
now. I'm
no,
picturing
no, this is
a
temporarily adult.
naughty librarian, got it, okay.
Yes, yes, fairy princess, a
Mhm.
wicked witch, sort of thing, yeah.
Got it.
Peggy, tell us about next week's art, if you don't mind.
Sure. So next week is our main stage show, as we say, and it's called Emancipation: The Unfinished Business, or the Unfinished. I can't remember the whole. But essentially, it's contemporary artists, Black American contemporary artists today, addressing this idea of emancipation and what it means and what it has and what it means now. So a lot of tough questions, a lot of thought-provoking artwork. And so some of the artwork was made specifically for this exhibition. Some of it has been made recently and having a nice conversation with the other artworks on view. So we're gonna kind of get into it.
Okay,
Thank
great,
you.
thank you.
Peggy.
All right,
Thank you,
friends, have a good
Peggy.
week, and I will talk to you next week.
All right,
Okay.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Peggy.
Don't
All
go
right.
away, gang. Don't go away. It's Fifth Street Cafe today, so we can talk some more
Woohoo.
about Grand Prairie if you want to, Steve.
Well, I'm gonna head out. I've got another thing going, so I will
Picture of mine.
see you.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, Nan. We'll hopefully talk later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, Steve.
At 11:30, we have bingo round 2, and at 1:30, we have Story Wise today
Ooh, bingo?
at 11:30. So
Yes.
let me stop the recording.